Coming up on the W Show, the race for the 8 heats up as midweek footy comes to a close. We dissect what worked and what didn't. Plus, what next for AFLW? Kate McCarthy joins us on the couch. You're watching the W Show, thanks to NAB. Great to have your company. Week 7 of AFLW. There is so much to unpack, so let's introduce our panel this week. Award-winning journalist Sarah Black is with me. As always, Sarah, welcome to you.
Thanks for having me, Nat.
And Kate McCarthy is back. You had the wrist injury last time you were on the show. Then you've had a stint in hospital. Are you okay?
Yes, I am okay. I'm back to full health now.
Good. I'm glad.
But yes, very happy to be here, and a very special round, obviously, that's near and dear to all of our hearts, Pride round. I'm very excited for this weekend of footy, or this week and weekend of footy.
I know, it is. We're still in that midweek fixture crunch at the moment. We will get to that in a moment, but let's start with Pride round, as you say, Kate, and it is a really significant round where we get to celebrate the LGBTQIA plus community and also their contribution to our game of Australian football, because it is rich. Those history and the roots go right back. You can see here all 18 clubs will have their Pride Guernseys. You can check them out on afl.com.au as well. Kate, you've been part of Pride rounds in the past. What significance did it hold for you?
Oh, it was really a beautiful opportunity because we have so many members of the queer community that play AFLW, and we've had this unique experience that from day one we've been able to be ourselves in the AFLW, and I think it's just a beautiful thing that we can all come together and celebrate the pioneers. We aren't the pioneers of women's football. They came well before any of us. So I sort of watched the feature on AFL.com, which was beautiful. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you jump on and watch it, just about the previous and the heritage and the history behind
it's important, isn't
Pride
it?
round and what it means to people, because visibility and having the conversation is something that's far more important than football, and it's just great that we get to use football as a vehicle for those conversations.
I mean, the research tells us that 80% of Australians who participate in sport have either witnessed or experienced homophobia. Did you ever experience anything like that?
No, I didn't. I grew up in sort of playing sports where I was surrounded by people that either identified as queer or non-binary, or all of those sort of parts of the community, and I think I've probably experienced it more outside of sport. I think you still have these situations, my partner and I, who have been together for a long time now, we're engaged, and sometimes we'll be walking down the street and I sort of will hold her hand and I still sort of look around and I'm like, oh, is this a safe place to do that, or are people sort of judging me right now? And it's something that you always experience. You sort of always have that thought in the back of your mind, and people ask, when did you come out? Well, you come out every day, really. There'd be even people watching this now that didn't know that I've come out to just then. So it's a lifelong thing that it's not a burden at all, but it's something that you've always sort of got there that could either be perceived in the wrong way, or you could be in a space that's actually not quite safe. So rounds like this are so important.
They are, Sarah, because we're having a conversation about it now, and it might help some younger people who are grappling with their sexuality potentially, or maybe trying to find a safe and inclusive environment.
For sure, and I've seen, coming through over the years and how this has sort of developed and these conversations have developed. I've played football with queer teammates and who have been really comfortable to be themselves, and it's just so special to see, because, that's what we want, don't we?
We want everyone to be their authentic, genuine selves and own that, and not everyone is able to do that because there aren't those safe environments, but hopefully the AFLW is leading the way in this space. Let's get to some footy chat now, and the D's, well, that stunned the Crows last night, Sarah, and this has got a big impact in terms of finals. We'll unpack that in a little while, but it's the first time since round 3 2021 that the Crows have been held to 1 goal.
Yes, it was a really gritty win by Melbourne. They did the damage early and there wasn't much damage, to be honest. It was a really low-scoring affair. Adelaide shot themselves in the foot a little bit, kicking 1 goal 8 for the game. There was a few gimme goals in there. And Melbourne made it a real, dogfight.
Yeah, they did,
and they really toughed it out. There was some great moments there. I just want to shout out Maeve Chaplin, who has stood up under enormous pressure this year without Libby Birch, without Maddie Gay, let alone all the injuries that have come through that area of the field. And I think Chaplin's just been blossoming.
Well, we need to pay tribute to Crows skipper Ebony Marinoff, and she is our star power this week thanks to NAB, because, Kate, she became the first AFLW player last night to notch up 2,000 disposals, which is incredible. I think the captaincy suits her. She's had such a stellar season.
Well, I just simply cannot comprehend how Ebony Marinoff keeps getting better. She, honestly, from day one has been one of the premier midfielders of the competition. We're now in our 9th season. She's in her 9th season, and this is her career highs for disposals, for tackles, for clearances. She's kicked 3 goals this season already. Her best in a season has been 4, so she's pretty much on track to surpass that. But I just cannot fathom how she just continues to get better and better. And as you said, the vice captaincy, that's just something that she's just, the co-captaincy has thrived with alongside Sarah Allen. So I've been so impressed by her. Obviously works really hard at her craft and deserves all the accolades and all the applause that she really gets, because she's someone that's just a workhorse.
Yeah, she certainly is.
You said that you don't know how she's getting better. I suspect a lot of it, she's putting in so many hours away from football. Like, you know, if you follow her on socials, you'll see, you know, she's always doing Pilates, she's doing the extras, and she's just getting fitter and stronger, and is a perfect example of someone who came in at 18 when the competition was starting and is now just evolving beautifully.
Well, it's no means a fluke. It's absolutely by sheer hard work and determination. Absolutely.
She's the ultimate professional, and I dare say she might be right up there come the best and fairest in the league at the end of the season. To some match review office news now, and a bit of a blow for the Saints, Sarah, because Jamie Lambert, one of their star midfielders, has been handed a 1-game ban for this dangerous tackle on giant Elise Parker here. Are the Saints going to challenge this one?
Yes, they were so certain they were going to challenge. They'd already planned to challenge before she'd even been officially charged. You know, they were pretty confident about this one. I suspect the argument they're going to take is that they feel like there's an angle that shows Parker could have dropped the footy and, you know, had one arm free to protect herself. We'll see if that argument stacks up. But, you know, Lambert's such a star in that team, and their season is on the line in the next few weeks. So, you know, why not roll the dice and have a go?
Midweek footy finishes up this week. It has certainly been a hot topic of conversation. It has been a really intense period for clubs, that is for sure. If we take a look at the ladder during this condensed fixture that we've been having from weeks 4 to 7, some teams have absolutely thrived. I mean, Essendon won 3 games in 9 days. North Melbourne, Brisbane and Hawthorn obviously didn't suffer a loss, but then you look at the Giants, Gold Coast and Carlton down the bottom of this ladder here, and they were unable to win a game. Collingwood obviously had all those injury issues as well, which impacted them. The AFL will now take the time to review it, and here's a little snapshot of how that has played out, and then we'll have a chat off the back of that.
I'm just thinking about how tired I am because of the compressed.
So
we're like right in the depths of ours right now, and the depths are deep right now.
We had a treat this week. We had 6 days. Had a little midweek holiday. It was outstanding. So, and you know, next week we go to 7. But it's like, how do you use all of those 7 days? That's the key.
So we want to understand from our players how they've experienced it. We've heard, you know, some players have really. We've been hearing from clubs have really enjoyed it. Others not as much. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Kate, how have you experienced it as, you know, a commentator in this game, but also a former player? You speak to other players out there. What have you seen?
From what I've heard from other players, it has been a really challenging time for them and for clubs. We saw Pepper saying, on credit to the girls, that she is exhausted. And I was exhausted playing when we'd have a 6-7 day break. It's very, very draining football. It's physically, but it's also mentally and emotionally, probably more so than it is physically, because after games, you just get this huge peak of adrenaline for games, and then you just get dumped the next day. You genuinely wake up feeling almost depressed in a way, because you've had this big overload to your system that you just need to recover. I could not imagine then playing another game in 2 or 3 days. It's been really tough on teams, and I think we've seen the product itself has actually been affected. It's been probably not the best result that we've wanted in the period of time where we're still trying to grow this game. And I think we've seen scores that have been down. None sort of probably a better example than the game last night between Adelaide and Melbourne. No disrespect to both of those teams. They looked exhausted. and they couldn't get their game going the way that we've normally seen from both of those teams in a period where they had a 3 or 4 day break. So I just don't think it's something that's good for the longevity of the competition and also good for the growth of the competition.
Well, it's certainly something they're going to have to look at. I mean, you look at attendances as well, TV numbers and the like, Sarah. And, you know, you and I both absolutely love football. We can't get enough of it. But even I have felt really footy fatigued and not really wanted to tune in. And I think that's a real shame of it all. I know we had some school holidays. We had a good turnout at Frankston last week for the Hawthorn Gold Coast game. But I think outside of that, a Wednesday 5 p.m. game, I'm not sure that works for broadcasters, fans alike.
Yeah, because it's not just like the game is so important, obviously, but it's everything that comes with it when you're thinking about growing the game. So, you know, to speak from a personal perspective, I've been finding it a real grind and a real chore, and I sort of have to sit myself down and watch more football, which is absurd position to be in. I'm so very aware of that. But we've been struggling to, you know, write creatively and you know, use that time to talk about, you know, building the game and that sort of thing, because it's just been game after game after game. There's no breathing space to allow the storylines of the competition to evolve.
And it is a real shame that we're sitting here as people that love footy and love AFLW, that we're sitting here saying it's been a chore to watch. Like, these girls deserve more respect than that.
100%.
Not saying that what you're saying is disrespectful at all, but they are athletes that give up so much of their time to be professional athletes at their sport. And we're people that love the game and we're exhausted and tired.
We owe it to them to showcase it in the best possible light. So that begs the question, Kate, where to next for the AFLW? Because if we look at season 2025, we're looking at least 12 rounds of football. We cannot squeeze that again into 10 weeks. So you've proposed a little bit of a timeline. Take me through it.
Yeah, so just going off what we've had this year, this is sort of what next year will need to look like. I'm not saying this is what it will look like, but for them to get 12 rounds in and still finish in that last week of November, we're going to have to start in men's round 22, on the 16th of August. That means we'll wrap up on around the 3rd of November. Finals week 1 will be the 8th to the 10th of November that weekend, and then the grand final would be the 30th. The things that I see though with that's going to be 8 rounds that we are coming up against or going side to side with men's football. 4 of those weeks will be 4 weeks where there's full fixtures of men's football. So where are the broadcast slots? Where are they going to play the games? I know double headers have been floated. Let's scrap double headers and let's get back-to-back games at Marvel, or let's get something happening there. That's the positive of playing at that time of year. Marvel's available, so why not have games at Marvel? They don't play men's finals at Marvel, so let's open that ground and let's get some double headers going through there, so the quality improves because it's not going to be wind affected. But AFLW fans are unique in the sense that they'll support multiple teams. I guarantee they will stay for a game that has a club that's not their club, and they will stay for a game that has their favourite club playing in it as well.
It's the 10th season next year, isn't it, Sarah? So we need to be growing this game, and we understand all the complexities with broadcast and venue availability and all the like as well. And you want clear air. But you look at the NRLW and the NRL, they play their grand final on the same day as well. I'm not sure I want to see an AFLW and AFL grand final on the same day, but they do align their competitions, which I think has worked pretty well for them.
Yeah, there's been hits and misses, I think, along the way. You don't, like, you know, there have been some NRLW games that have been played at 10 a.m, 11 a.m, and that ends up cannibalising audiences because, you know, they're young girls who want to are playing their own sport on a Saturday morning. So it is really difficult. But I think what we really need is certainty. You know, I've been covering this competition since 2017, and my calendar years have been absolutely insane. Like, you know, from that end to that end to that, we just need, you know, right, this is what it's going to be like for 5 years' time. Make the call, stick with it long term.
And it takes away that conversation. Whenever I do any sort of media at sort of other sort of entities around AFLW, the first question, or even just talking to the general public, the first question I always get asked is, okay, when do you think the AFLW best works? Let's get that question done by saying this is what it is the next 5 years. We will be playing at this time of year, so that the question becomes, okay, who's looking good this year? Or who's playing well? Who's surprised you? More so than when will they play next year? And it gives people certainty. It gives the players certainty. It gives all of us in the media certainty, and we can move forward.
A lot of work to be done in this space. Let's talk about finals though, because the race for the 8 is certainly heating up as we take a look at the live ladder at this point. The Kangaroos, the Lions and the Hawks all have 6 wins to their name. They should finish with a double chance. Richmond, Freo and Adelaide are still vying for that top 4 finish, but barring any disasters are all highly likely to be playing finals this season, which brings us to the clubs who are still vying for a place in the top 8. That's St Kilda, Essendon, West Coast, Port Adelaide and now Melbourne. After last night's win, the Cats are mathematically still within a chance, but fairly unlikely. So we're going to narrow our focus to that group that's still fighting for a final spot. We'll start with St Kilda. And Sarah, they won their opening 3 games of the season. They then lost the next 3 games, back on the winners list on Tuesday night. But what do they need to focus on in their final 4 games of the season?
We were speaking earlier about winners and losers from the compressed fixture. I think you'd put St Kilda as a loser. They struggled. For me, it's all about their midfield. I think they were really exposed at times against the Giants. When the Giants got on a roll, it was driven straight out of the middle in the 3rd term when they managed to hit the scoreboard. No Liv Vesely in this game. She's huge to them. And if Jamie Lambert, we'll see whether that suspension and challenge is successful or not, because it's all won and lost for me through that midfield, Kate.
I agree completely, and the Giants have some really big bodies through the midfield and they expose them, and I think sort of showed how important Liv Vesely is in that midfield as well. And Charlotte Simpson's been someone that's been really good too through there, so they need to sort of get her back and get her playing through the midfield too, so that should help.
So for West Coast, it has already been a historic season under new coach Daisy Pearce. The 4 wins for the year. Can the fairy tale finals story continue?
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I don't see them in my top 8 coming the end of the season, purely for who they still have. So they have Hawks, Fremantle, Cats and Swans. That's a pretty tough last 4 games. But my concern is what we see there and their inability to stop teams getting on a roll when they're against them. So they gave up a 19-0 lead. They were ahead in this game by 19-0 before Port Adelaide had hit the scoreboard, and then Port really owned them in the 2nd quarter. They then came out in the 3rd and did the same thing and just put on back-to-back goals, so 5 goals conceded, and that's the thing that I think as a young team, so I've played at a couple of expansion clubs now, and that's the thing that you really struggle with is switching the momentum in games, is finding players that are mature enough and have enough experience to know that, okay, the ball's gone back to the middle. We don't need to win this clearance. We just need to make sure the other team doesn't. And that's where, when you're young and inexperienced, that's where your mind goes, we need to win this one. And by throwing all your chips in, the other team wins it again and goes out the front of your stoppage, and then they're back inside forward 50. So Daisy will be working through that with them, but it's their ability to change the game before they hear from Daisy at quarter time or at half time or at 3/4 time that will need to evolve.
That on-field leadership. Let's talk about West Coast, not West Coast, Port Adelaide. We just talked about the Eagles, but Port Adelaide is 10th on the ladder. They're 3-4 for the season. Sarah, they face Collingwood tonight, but what do they need to do to improve?
Yeah, must-win match against the Pies. They'll be going for 3 in a row for the first time in their history, so that's one to look out for. Port Adelaide, their good is great, their bad is horrible at the moment, and it's all around that delivery into the forward line. So they've got a young midfield who are developing and coming on very quickly, but they can fall into the trap of Gemma Houghton or bust and put it on her head, as we see in this game against Richmond. She's a really strong lead-up player. She's so quick, Gemma, that they need to put it out in space for her. They've also got to broaden their horizons, which they did against the Eagles, hitting up Julia Teakle and Ash Saint as well. It's not all going to be down to Gemma. If you look at your other options, as we saw against West Coast, they can score.
Yeah, so just be a little bit more efficient when you're going forward for Port Adelaide. And Kate, we have to mention Melbourne now because they weren't in the conversation yesterday, but after last night's shock win against the Crows, they're 1 game out. They are a lot of percentage out of the top 8. That's where they've got to make things up there. But they've already played Brisbane and North Melbourne as we take a look at what 4 games are still to come. And they could get Paxi Paxman back, potentially Liv Purcell.
Yeah, so their injury list is actually, this is the point where they're getting a lot of their players back. So Lauren Pearce, Paxi, Blaheen Mackin and Liv Purcell could all be back on Sunday. We're not sure whether their 1 week timeline is next week or one game. We're still clarifying that. So they could all be in the frame to play on Sunday. Some of them may, some of them may not. So that's going to be a huge boost for them. But they're against the team we spoke about in St Kilda, and that becomes basically do or die for both of these teams heading into the top 8.
That's a really winnable run home.
Isn't it?
If we look, if we know, the Melbourne we know and love, they should win all 4 games. It's just a matter of whether they can get the cattle on the park. Keep your eye on Liv Purcell. She will be wearing a mask when she does eventually return.
Yeah, those horrible facial fractures. Now, we will get to Essendon in a moment, so Bombers fans, just hold tight because Gemma and Kate are going to discuss that in the deep dive. So, Kate, I'll let you go to the deep dive with Gemma, but Sarah, just quickly on Geelong. I mean, they must beat Richmond this week if they're any chance of staying, because they're a game and a half out of the top 8, but even if they do make it, they've still got Brisbane and Adelaide to come.
Yeah, it's all on the line this weekend, so we'll be able to have a clearer picture on where the Cats are at when they face the Tigers. We're talking mathematical probabilities here, which is not the position you want to be in for the Cats, unfortunately. Amy McDonald's still a couple of weeks away, so, I've got the grey lead pencil out with Geelong. Not yet a permanent marker, but a grey lead pencil.
Okay, good. I like it. Now, at 4 and 3, the Bombers are well and truly in the finals conversation. They've won their last 3 games. They faced the Bulldogs on Friday night in the Pride Round marquee game. And Gemma, we weren't sure how they were going to fill the void left by their co-captain in Bonnie Toogood when she went down with injury, but they've managed pretty well, and now she's back.
Someone I'm really excited to highlight today, Kate, is Maddie Gay, who's been such a crucial piece of the Essendon puzzle, especially without Bonnie in the side.
Yeah, she has been. I think for me, she's the recruit of the year. I know there's a few people that have been really impactful at their new clubs, but Maddie Gay, the ability, and we say the domino effect, what it's allowed Essendon to do without Bonnie, but now that they get her back, they have this freedom of choice as to who's going to play where.
Yeah, it's a embarrassment of riches, isn't it? Yes. If we look at what she's actually been able to do on the field, with her down back, it's actually meant that Elise Gamble could go forward when Bonnie was out of the side. Obviously, she's back, but still, a few games up forward. But it's also allowed Sophie Alexander to play that role higher that she's so good at. Why is that so important to the structure at Essendon?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love Elise Gamble forward. She's been a real find for them with Bonnie being out, and I really hope they persist with that because I think the two of them can come up with a very good forward structure. But Sophie Alexander, obviously 16 on the field in women's footy, so your half forwards need to get up really high. She's so athletic. She can get all the way up to, she pushes all the way into D50 at times, but then because she's so quick, such a good ball user, she races her defender back towards goal and then often finds herself out the back.
And chops out in the ruck. We've got some vision to support some of this stuff from Maddie Gay. Just how smart she is. We see her actually in the hole back here. She's the loose player essentially, but it's because she's making the quick decision to get back.
So they're able to generate her as the +1, but it's not just when she's the +1, it's this work rate as well. So she's the one pushing all the way down, steps back inside. You'd think as a forward you'd probably have time and space there, not with Maddie Gay in the area, and then her ball use as well. So this is Sophie Alexander. We said before how she's pushing all the way down. That's why she's doing it. Here, we've got her just reading the ball off the pack, playing as that loose player, but then impacting as well. It's good, well and good to sit back as a +1 and not impact, but she knows where the ball's going. She reads it so well, and guess who pops up on the end of it? It's Elise Gamble, who as I said before, I love her ability to go forward, to crash packs, to take marks. I think it's going to be really good for them. And then finally, her ability to just create this teasing distance. She knows she has a sanctuary of the boundary line here. She forces the kick and then is able to come across, force the stoppage, and then they rebuild from there, rather than it being a mark down the line and then Essendon defending deeper on the ground.
She's just so smart with the way she moves the footy, but also the way she defends the footy and space. It's something the Western Bulldogs need to be really cautious of this weekend. Potentially, there'll be a defensive forward role on the cards. We don't know yet, but it's a watch and see.
Thanks to Gemma Bastiani, one of the best analysts in the business, as we take a look, Sarah, at the Bombers' next 4 games. Their final 4, the Dogs, obviously Friday night, North Melbourne, Richmond and Carlton. Do you have them making in? Who are your 2 that you're thinking of finishing in this top 8?
Yeah, I think Essendon are one of the most talented teams in that bunch. I'm backing Melbourne. I've just got a feeling they're going to come from the clouds.
I like this. Kate?
My two, I think St Kilda and Essendon will take the last two spots in the 8. That would mean Port Adelaide would slide out, but Essendon have a little bit of percentage to make up as well, but they can kick big scores. So it's going to be a great finals race anyway.
It certainly is. Let's take a look at the remaining games for Week 7 of the AFLW. And Kate, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm going to get down to Whitten Oval on Friday night
I'll see you there.
they absolutely know how to do Pride Round properly there. There's going to be drag queens. There's going to be a whole lot of festivities. I haven't been able to get to any games as a spectator yet, so I'm really excited for that one. But then St Kilda and Melbourne on Sunday is going to be an absolute ripper as well.
And for me, Richmond, Geelong,
must
huge
win, right?
finals ramifications there, Nat.
Oh, cannot wait for Friday night. That's where I'll be. No heckling on the boundary. Thanks, Kate. Now, before we go, you can actually win a 2024 NAB AFLW Grand Final experience thanks to NAB. So all you need to do is send us a message of support to inspire your favourite AFLW club or player and help them, and you can get to the Grand Final. Now, the prize includes travel, accommodation, 2 tickets to the game, and an unforgettable money cannot buy experience. So you can visit afl.com.au/NAB-AFLW-comp for your chance to win. Both of you should enter, although you'll probably both be there covering the game anyway. But what a fantastic prize.
It'll be fun.
Definitely. Love the W
Get the
Grand
day
Final.
off work and go to that.
How
I much
good.
prefer
And that's
that.
all thanks to NAB. Thank you so much for watching the W Show. Thank you to both of you. Top job as always, and I'll see you at the weekend. On
Sounds
the
good.
footy. And we'll see you next week on the W Show.
Want to get all the latest footy news in one hit? From injuries to breaking news, the latest from the coaches, the Footy Feed team has you covered. Watch it now on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app or wherever you get your podcasts.